Hi, this is Duncan Ferguson. In this brief series of four short videos, we're going to discuss the current status, very briefly, of evidence-based medicine's perspective of acupuncture. And in this first unit, will be basically just introductory concepts. Much of this would be better and more deeply discussed by somebody who is more associated with traditional Chinese medicine than me. I'm a pharmacologist. But I'm going to try to take the perspective of where's the evidence throughout this series. And the other two parts of this, three parts of the series will be on pretty much making connections. The second one, making connections to the autonomic nervous system. The third, focusing on pain and inflammation. And the fourth, really kind of a review of the meta-analyses, etc., that have been done looking at acupuncture in its evidence. Where is the evidence? How strong is it? Where does it lie as a clear effect, and where is there a complication because of things like the placebo effects? So let's head into this, and I do not, again, want to portray myself as an expert in acupuncture, but have tried to sort through the literature and look at what a few highlighted areas where we think there might be some reasonable evidence to support it and where it's not so strong. The first thing to address is, that this is out there, okay? This is something that is being used in human medicine and veterinary medicine. And if in one study, albeit the data is a little dated now, and it's probably even more so now that the evidence for acupuncture has been somewhat addressed by NIH study sections and funding mechanisms. But about a tenth of the population do say that at some point they've had acupuncture, and about another 60% would say that they'd consider it if other options were not available to them. So this complementary approach of using acupuncture has come into the mainstream, and I think it is worth looking at with regards to what do we know about it in general, and what specifically do we know about it in vet medicine. So let's take a look at the parallels between acupuncture and contemporary medicine. And I want to recommend a reference that I've listed here at the bottom by Cheng. And this is, and other references that I've used in this series will be shown at the end of the series. So if we look at insertion of an acupuncture needle, get a therapeutic effect. That's clearly something that is easy to look at. It's a black box. But then if you use the terminology associated with traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture, terminology such as qi, yin, and yang, you start to see where that traditional Chinese medicine is associating specific types of effects leading to a therapeutic effect. At this point, it's probably worth noting what I have over here on the left, and that is that traditional Chinese medicine and Western medicine differ in the diagnosis process. Basically, in traditional Chinese medicine, the diagnosis is achieved by principles of syndrome identification. If you've been through a study or a program, as many of you might have done and will do, this is the center point of is it this syndrome or that syndrome, and therefore certain types of effects that would be beneficially addressed by acupuncture might be in order. Well, of course, in Western medicine, we say, let's get a diagnosis, let's put a name on it, and then let's treat it. So going down to our image C here, what I'd like to do, and will do in subsequent units, is to address the connections between the neuroanatomy, autonomic nervous system, and physiology of insertion of an acupuncture needle. And I remember taking a graduate course elective over 30 years ago on this subject, where it was and so we're talking about the late 70s, where this was just starting to be addressed by more carefully developed studies. And you'll see when we talk in the last unit about the evidence basis of it, there's still issues that may never be resolved, but I think it's worth trying to connect those things where there is a basis, and there are now more carefully done studies to support therapeutic effects of acupuncture. So the frustrating point may be that there's still mainly hypotheses about how acupuncture works. There's no proof of exactly how it works. From the standpoint of evidence-based medicine. However, just like with all areas of complementary medicine, whether it be herbal medicine or acupuncture, the practitioners believe that the Western attempt to create mechanistic models probably oversimplifies the interpretation and maybe tries to take away some of the beneficial effects that would be seen, that are just, in their minds, just seen. But let's take a look at the various aspects, first with the neuroanatomy. The nervous system, the acupuncture points are concentrated around nodes of neural activity, peripheral nerves, motor points, mechanoreceptors, and nerve endings, or neuromuscular attachments. And then there's this concept of that we used to think of as the neuroexcitable membrane, the Hodgson-Huxley principles, one neuron going to another neuron concept that are now believed to be better replaced in even Western medicine as being in phase and out of phase, electrical signals within the central nervous system. And so for many years, for example, the electroencephalogram was hard to explain just based on single neuron hypotheses. So phasic and out of phase electrical activity is purportedly what traditional Chinese medicine is trying to resolve when it addresses it with acupuncture. The other area that relates to anatomy is connective tissue, and the points of the meridian points. Meridian are various sectors of the body. I shouldn't say they're points. Are often related to intramuscular loose connective tissue. And the reason that the practitioner recognizes this is that there are often catch points of the needle that are basically insertion through collagen. In addition, I think this is a concept that needs to be added into one's thinking about acupuncture, is that they've identified what's called the premovascular system that doesn't relate to the blood or the lymphatic, in that is somewhat related, is like other parts, like the blood, is related to the neural activity, so neurovascular activity. More studies of this need to be done, but this is at least a hypothesis. What actual compartment this is, I wasn't able to find out. So let's look at a few points of terminology and see if we can make a connection between acupuncture points, the meridian, and physiology. Trigger points. So trigger points are felt to be associated with pain triggers. This is Western medicine thinking, but it's called the qi phenomenon or sensation in acupuncture. These trigger points may represent a subset of acupuncture points, and they call that qi points. And I'm not an expert on this, but this is what has been proposed. Now, some studies interestingly in humans and dogs have used technetium to try to inject it into sites along meridians, and they've actually been able to show the tracking of this radioisotope along what the acupuncturist would call a meridian. So there seems to be some anatomical connections. They're not perfectly connected, but there are some. Perhaps more interesting and relevant to the physiology is that some data suggest that there are electrical resistance minima, impedance minima, with diameters of 104 millimeters that correspond to the acupuncture points. And then finally, the concept of qi refers to the signals within the channels that mediate effects. That's the term that they have for it. Well, what does this mean to us in Western medicine? It's the effects on the nerves, it's the mechanical force, and as we'll talk about in more detail relative to the autonomic nervous system and to the somatic nervous system, and specifically with pain, we have paracrine and endocrine molecular interactions.